I am Positively Chris Pace, and you are actively listening to Conversations with Kris. How are you, buddy?
Good.
Doing all right?
Yeah.
You
All
coming back
right.
from the darkness, or are you administering?
Um, Administering, but I get my dose of the darkness. I tend to get up there once a week for, yeah, just a couple hours.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, I totally get it, but also like, wow, that's amazing. Is it
Yeah.
something that you always had a passion for? I mean, how did you begin this whole thing?
Yeah. Oh, we're just gonna dive right in.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Uh,
this is just me asking you questions so I can kind of get an
yeah, yeah.
overall sensation, and then we'll go
Totally.
through and yeah, no, I
Right.
keep it casual. I like to keep it nice and soft and gentle.
Cool. Um, I guess I mean I wouldn't say always, but definitely for a while I've definitely had a since my probably late teens, there's been a passion for solitude and kind of that exploration. And so Dark Retreat was kind of like when I discovered Dark Retreat, it was like right up my alley
Nice.
of,
Nice.
yeah. Prior to that, I had spent 2.5 years throughout 7, 8 years alone up in the mountains in southern Baja and Mount Shasta.
Wow, that's killer. Yeah, that's going to be a
Yeah,
great story. I did a 3 month sabbatical down in Chile, down in Patagonia, and basically
nice.
took a backpack and just went down there and camped out in the middle of nowhere, and for
Yeah.
3 months. And the isolation was the goal to get back to like, okay, as a human being existing on planet Earth, what does it take to survive, and how much do we really need in
Mhm.
our lives? And really, what it was life's pretty easy, man. You wake up, you find some food, find some water, you pee, you poop, and you sleep. And then you got a lot of
Right.
free time to wander around and enjoy Earth. But when I came
Mhm.
back, I said, well, now anything I add to my life that brings stress to my life is me choosing that. And so I have to choose the amount of stress and what stress. So I lived in a house for like a year and a half without furniture because I was so like, I don't want anything. I'm happy without anything, you know? And so it was great. But yeah, no, we'll go through all that and see what was the inspiration behind it all for you. Because I know for me, it gave me so much clarity and it's given me the
Yeah.
ability to take back my life. I mean, I do phone fasts like 3 days a month where I don't touch my phone for 24 hours. And I've,
Mhm.
asked people, hey, anybody want to do a phone fast with me? And they're like, there's no way I can make it through a phone fast. And I'm like, and that doesn't bother you? Like, you that you can't put a phone down? Like, I find it would bother, it bothers me insanely if something has control over me, you know? So, I was like, all right, well, stay a slave, but they got you plugged in. So I'm excited to talk to you. I'm excited to come out and try this thing because I don't know. Well, I guess we'll get into it more and I'll share some of me with you. But I mean, I feel like I'm in the darkness for majority of my life before I found the light, the real light.
Mhm.
It's the light
Mhm.
inside of me. So, I mean, I think it'll be fun to have. It looks like you're in like a Pueblo, like a clay house.
Yeah. Yep. It's a little playhouse.
Is it? That's cool. That's real cool. So
Yep.
we'll go ahead and get started. And obviously I'll do
Cool.
an intro for you before we punch it up. But yeah, so we'll start from the beginning. I think it's important to know where and why you came from and this whole idea came from because clearly it's the first time I've heard of somebody doing this. But watching the
Mhm.
people's faces when they come out of there and take these masks off is powerful, man, really powerful. Like
Yeah.
it's a really cool thing. So from somebody who's thought he had found all the different ways to heal my mind, body, and soul, open my eyes to a to closing my eyes. It's like
Right.
fasting from like vision, you know what I mean? Like, and so I can only imagine the clarity. I mean, I've done some meditations that were pretty intense and long lasting, but nothing like what you guys are putting on. So tell me about you. Tell me
Totally.
about where you're from, how you got to where you're at now.
Yeah. I grew up in South Jersey, outside of Philly,
Okay, didn't see that one
and
coming.
yeah, I mean, not to, in a
Thought for sure you were like from, South Dakota, somewhere.
right. Yeah.
Somebody
Now
who,
grew up in the suburbs of Philly, and not really living any type of life like how I do now. in I mean, mushrooms, definitely psilocybin played a big role in like starting to open me up to like, oh, there's more than meets the eye.
Wow, I
I think
never.
my first psilocybin experience was really the most impactful. It was the first moment of like, whoa, like really actually knowing, like viscerally in my body, a sense of wholeness and a sense of happiness that wasn't dependent on a certain kind of experience that wasn't I didn't it didn't need to be validated through culture or through the
Right.
world. Like it was just this life force, just like a fullness. It wasn't even like a crazy psychedelic. It was just like
No, no,
just
yeah,
being
I
full
get
of
it.
life,
Yeah, heightened
you know.
senses feel the. So you're in Oregon, or are you in Washington?
Yeah, we're in Southern Oregon.
And you guys are legal now, yeah, for psilocybin
We are. Yeah.
medically.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
They're working on it for Florida. I'm down here in Florida, but I traveled overseas because of PTSD. I'm a 100% disabled vet who suffered a
Hmm.
TBI, and because of all the things I did, I started reading about stuff, and I was studying yoga, I was doing Ayurvedic medicine, I was doing breath work, and I was like, I just need something else. I need something to show me the way out of the matrix, right? To unplug myself and
Yeah.
plug myself back into the actual universe. And so I began obviously with a heavy dosage of ayahuasca, DMT ceremony, and then smoothed into microdosing psilocybin for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, every day, all day.
Mhm.
And I mean, just the clarity it gave me, the positive, the optimism, the positive outlook, the ability to use my third eye and see so much more than I'd ever seen, and introspectively look within. So it really was a lifesaver. I mean, I wish that we could get our heads out of our wherever and get
Hmm.
this stuff out to the people, because as veterans, 22 vets a day commit suicide in America. That's an absolute
Right.
ridiculous number, and we could be
Hmm.
fixing this with plants that we have in myocilius, and you know what I mean. Like, there's things on the earth that grow and that magically they cure things. Go figure.
Hmm.
We don't need synthetic drugs. So psilocybin started at what, 5? You were tripping and you came up to no, I'm just kidding. He was a
Yeah, I had my
little.
psilocybin 16, something like that, and that was definitely a moment. And then there was a breakup that I had when I was maybe 20 that definitely created some level of disillusionment, like things like that can.
Yeah,
And at
certainly
that
shifts the
same
perspective.
time, I got turned on to Ram Dass's Be Here Now and meditation, and so I started going down that path. And so that's when I started spending a lot of time alone, a lot of time meditating. And then my 20s was basically there's this magical place I discovered down in southern Baja, this desert oasis. And so I would go down there every winter for 4 or 5 months, and I'd spend time up in the mountains there alone for years. And so really got really familiar, really deep into that practice of solitude, of being alone, that exploration of kind of what emerges in that. And then in 2012,
Okay.
somebody mentioned a darkness retreat to me, 2011, 2012, and that really struck a chord. And so my wife and I, in 2012, blacked out our house and we did a dark retreat together in the house for 5 days.
No way.
Different experience doing it with someone else, different experience doing it at your house. And so after we finished that, I went back down to Baja and was like, I'm going to go do one alone. And so I built this little earth bag dome and I went in there and I did my first solo dark retreat in 2013.
Wow. Okay. So you basically like eased your way into it, but it just kept feeling called towards it. Like it was something that you
Yeah.
were liking, enjoying, learning from, and growing from. So you were like, let me see if we can turn up the intensity a little bit and see how we can make this more
Yeah.
powerful.
That was definitely my MO in those days.
You're
Maybe not leaning in
not
as
known for
much
your
to the intensity
moderation.
now, but that was definitely I mean, I still have a voracious appetite in that way, but it's been a little bit maybe a little more balanced now. And
Yeah.
so when I did it in 2013, I was like, whoa, that was really, I mean, I was actually taken by how challenging it was. That was kind of
Uh,
one thing that really leveled me was I felt like I was really well prepared. I knew solitude. I had spent years alone. So like that wasn't going to be a new, what's it like being alone without phone, without technology? It was like, I've spent months in that. I know what that's like. I can meditate 10, 12 hours a day. Like, but it doesn't matter in the darkness. The more someone thinks that they're prepared, the harder time they have. The
Yeah,
more that someone thinks that they're prepared, the less open and available they are, the more rigid they actually tend to be. The reason that people feel like they're prepared is because they've got it together. There's a strength, but that strength tends to be more of an armor than like actually a resource. And we see that
right,
all the time with people who come here. I saw it with myself. I've actually seen it in myself going back into the dark multiple times. Like there's a lot of wisdom in the Zen mind, beginner's mind. And that was Suzuki Roshi, who the Zen master. And I mean, another thing that he said was, um, in the beginner's mind, there is unlimited options. In the expert's mind, there's only one.
right.
And it's like thinking you're going to know how to navigate if you landed on Mars. Like you're going to know
Yeah,
how to get around it. You're going to know where
right.
to
Like
go.
you've got
Like
GPS.
you've got it figured out. It's like you actually don't. And if you
No.
think you're going to land on Mars and you're going to know how to navigate the planet, you're going to have a lot harder time. Um,
That's
Being
right.
actually humbled in the fact that you have no idea how to orient. And the darkness is similar. It's like the people who come who are like, I'm scared, I'm nervous. I'm like, it's like I used to, from my conditioning, feel like, oh, this person's going to have a hard time because there's this person who's like, I've got it. But now that I've seen so many hundreds of people go through, the people who are actually able to land in the fact and be honest in their interior that they're nervous, that they're anxious, that they're a little scared, whatever it is, those people, there's an availability, there's an openness, there's a receptivity. They're actually going to be feeling their environment because they're a little unsure. As the
Right.
post person who goes in strong, they're almost not even paying attention. They're just ready to bulldoze whatever comes in their way. They're fighting. You know, it's like they already feel threatened and they're not
Yeah.
even able to acknowledge it because they're going in strong. And so
Yeah.
that's been an amazing thing to witness, like the wisdom in just like, whoa, like I don't know. And then there's so much information that somebody can receive of how to move as opposed to the person who's got it figured out. Like they're almost, it's not even a dance. It's just like they're going in strong. And so there's
Yeah, yeah.
something in that.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And so, do you find people are resistant because they don't like to be alone with themselves, or is it because they're just unfamiliar with what they're
Yeah.
doing with the darkness versus the light? Because that's something that I've always wondered as to why they're so locked. It's like, teaching someone to meditate or inviting someone to yoga class. What do they say? Oh, yeah, I love to go, but I can't stay for Shavasana. I hate Shavasana. And it's like, you do realize the entire point of the asana portion of yoga is for Shavasana. But because they're in a hurry, they act like, oh, I don't have time to lay still. So they're out.
Hmm.
And so to me, I would imagine if I had to guess, and I'm probably way off on this, I would say 7 out of 10 people that start this dark journey don't finish it, or at least not what they think they're going to. Is that more? Is it that high of a number, or would it be like more people really are okay with it? Because that's a challenging thing you're asking someone to do. Is to give up a lot of the senses and a lot of the control they think they have of what's going on around them.
Right. Well, wow, you just covered a lot of ground questions.
Yeah, take your time. I just,
Yeah,
you're very
I guess
interesting.
I totally. I guess I'd go with the people who finish. Like, um, I'll start
I mean,
there.
do they
And one
set a
thing,
goal? Do you do a goal? Is it like a 2 day? You were gonna do 48 hours, or do you do just how long you can go?
there's an intention of like, so the typical experience is 5 days, 6 nights. People come,
Okay.
the first 24 hours is really like weaving in and out of the darkness. And then on that second day, the night before they go in fully, there's a 2 hour intro prep session with Adrian, my other teammate partner here, who deeply prepares people uniquely for how they're structured, how their nervous system is, how they orient. She deeply prepares them for the dark. They go in that night. The intention is 3 days, 4 nights in the dark. Then
Okay.
they come out in the morning. They have another 2 hour kind of outro, closing, integration, processing session with Adrian, and then they leave the next day. I come up every morning and evening, and we have a touch in. We hear each other through the door, through the wall, and that may last 15 minutes. It may last an hour. It's kind of just unique to each touch in, what's appropriate, what feels needed. There's no playbook, right? Because
Yeah.
there's people up there all the time. So like this morning I was up there, there were three totally different conversations. Even if everyone's on their second day, it's like everyone's in something unique. And um, in terms of the completion rate, I would say at this point, um, it 90 at this point about 99% of people stay the entire time that they're here.
Wow.
um
That
that
way.
was different in the earlier days, so something to really touch on is like what we do here is much more than just putting people in the dark.
Right.
That is what we did in the early days. We've been doing it for 5 years. We've had over 500 people here. Like, it is a very delicate line to walk going into the dark. And it's a really delicate line to walk of facilitating and hosting people in the dark because most of what's happening goes unseen. People
Yeah.
do not know that they're in a trauma response, that they're coping, that they're in a safety strategy. 95% of people don't actually know what's happening to them
Right.
because on some level they feel threatened, agitated, overly exposed and confronted. And so they unconsciously go into these mechanisms and survival patterns and safety strategies that have them insulated and cut off from what's actually happening. And it's happening all the time. And I mean, we're constantly learning from each person that comes here because everyone's doing the same thing, but they're all doing it uniquely. And
Sure.
so, you see this one person and they do it this way, and it's like, so there's a lot of reading between the lines. And so it really matters where you do a dark retreat. It really matters like the level of experience that the person who's holding it has and how it's done, because otherwise, this is, I guess, my disclaimer. Otherwise, for 90% of people, it's going to re-traumatize them, and
Ugh,
or it's just going to reinforce their coping mechanisms, their safety strategies. They're going to make it through. We as humans can endure the craziest things, and so
right.
people will stay in the dark. So your question of like how many people make it, well, one thing is for many people the most profound thing would actually be coming out, because their survival strategy is to endure difficulty and not be honest that, like, actually, if I was turning towards a sense of nurture, I would walk out
Right.
because I'm
Right.
so overwhelmed, and I'm
Yeah.
so overwhelmed to the point that like I've gone numb and I'm enduring. And we see that a lot. We see it a lot less now because we're able to track with people. We're reading between the lines. We kind of have more of a sense of what's happening when people are in these different strategies and they're not able to notice it, but through certain ways, certain questions, through certain explorations with people, we can get more of a sense of where someone's at. And if someone's genuinely open and able to be vulnerable and receptive, then there's certain questions and way and explorations that people can begin to see what they're doing. They didn't even know they were doing that because they actually feel overwhelmed. And so most people stay here the entire time. Um, and it's less of an endurance now because of how we're with people. And one other thing to kind of add in there is there's a little book light, like those little lights that clip on the edge of a book. We have that in the room, and it's a red light. And what we have found now, and it took years of witnessing and being with people, is that if somebody's, because of how we're habituated in our culture to endure difficulty and push through, and like it's a man's world, so like if you're living and succeeding in this world, you have some edge of like enduring, overcoming difficulty, and
Right.
actually not respecting your boundaries, that you're overwhelmed. It's like tough shit, you got to buck up and do it. And we actually celebrate the people
Be
who
a
can really do
man.
hard things. Just be a man and do it. And
Yeah.
like, from an animal base, like
Yeah.
that's needed, like
Sure.
survive, to overcome, to
Sure.
fight. Like there is a primal instinct in that. And I think it then just becomes everything. And so what we have found though is somebody's in the dark, it becomes uncomfortable. Really, people are really confronted with their interior, it becomes really difficult. And because of that, like we're habituated, we overcome it, we overpower it, we manage it, we fix it, we
Now, is
endure
that a
the
good thing? Is that a
difficulty.
bad thing? Is that something you're trying to make them do, or you're
Well,
trying to
okay, so I mean,
teach them to
good or
honor
bad
their
is going to be right. Good or
yeah.
bad is going to be
Let's
through a
say healthy,
lens.
healthy, unhealthy, because I don't really believe
Sure.
in good or bad.
I'd
So
say it's like it tends to be a movement of dissociation. It's
okay.
not honest that one's uncomfortable.
Gotcha.
Like, and
It's
someone's
sort of like
doing,
hot yoga to me is a little excessive because we can heat our
uh-huh.
bodies from the inside once you learn to breathe
Hmm.
properly. So going to a
Hmm.
heated room where you're sweating, it's super hot, your body temperature is way above where it needs to be. You don't get a yoga high, you get a cardio high, which is different than a yoga
Hmm.
high. So to me, that
Hmm.
would kind of be like how I would associate it as now you're just enduring just to do it, just to survive it. And then, yeah, there's a sense of accomplishment, but did you look within and learn what you needed to learn, or were you just
Right. Yeah.
gritting your way
So
through it? I'm going to survive it, like
that's it, right. Yeah. So it's less about the good and the bad. It's more like now it's more like what someone's in. If there's a spectrum, one end of the spectrum is enduring, overcoming, overpowering. And then as you get down, it's like, and then it gets a little sophisticated and nuanced, especially with with breath work and spiritual practices, because in a lot of instances, those are used to manage your experience. You're feeling
right,
uncomfortable and you're going to breathe in a certain way, but in many instances, it's kind of a covering, because underneath that, the belief is this is not good to feel. Being sad, being angry, being afraid, being uncomfortable is wrong. Let's do some breath work. Let's do some practice and change it into a positive emotion. And not that there's anything inherently wrong with that. It's more like it's the orientation of what somebody really wants. Um, and that kind of falls in the spectrum of managing, fixing, changing, healing, awakening, transforming. There's a movement, but at a fundamental level underneath that, you're pretty much telling yourself that, like, this is not good or right to feel. But
yeah,
that is just through a cultural lens. I mean, it may not feel good to feel, but like it's part of the human experience. It is at a fundamental level, it is welcome here. And
right,
so we're in resistance. And so most people, while they're in the dark, unconsciously are in resistance to what they're feeling. I mean, most of us in the world, in
yeah,
resistance to what we're feeling. And then there's a movement to fix, change, heal, have a purpose, have a goal, get a result, achieve something. It makes us feel good. The other end of the spectrum, and not that one's better or worse, it's just kind of how someone really genuinely wants to orient. The other end of the spectrum is relaxing, receiving, allowing, welcoming, um, softening. It's just like it's very different than trying to create a certain kind of experience and manage what's happening. And so
do you
what we
guys
that was a
coach
big,
them in the
yeah,
dark, or is it
there's yeah, so those conversations that we have morning and evening, and again, it's a unique meeting. Like it's me when I'm up there really asking questions, having them share, me getting a sense of where they're at, but for the most part, I'm reading between the lines,
right?
because
They don't
because
know what to
people
say.
are because people we're all within our conditioning and our personalities, we're all fish in water. Like
Sure.
we don't actually see or notice much of why we are the way that we are. And we use so many brilliant, sophisticated beliefs and tools to actually insulate us from feeling fragile, uncomfortable, all the different things. So people, we do that all the time in our day to day. People do that in the dark. So somebody could be telling me, like, I'm super relaxed, I'm really happy, this is amazing. And they believe it. Like, they're not lying to
Right.
me. Like, they actually, on some level, feel like that. But reading between the lines or being with enough people in the dark and other things they're sharing, I can tell, like, that's actually that's kind of covering something that's deeper, that's really uncomfortable. They're doing something to be happy and relaxed. It's not like a receptive, like, it's not a receptive, soft, happy, relaxed, and comfortable. There's a numbness, there's something that they're doing. They're holding it together in a certain way. And so getting really, through being with enough people up there, noticing the difference of somebody who's holding it together and somebody who's genuinely relaxed. That's kind of the spectrum. And most of us in the world are holding it together, because if we're not, we're open and vulnerable, and it's really overwhelming, all the to really be unprotected and let it all in. And
Hmm.
so that's to say, there's this red light in the room that we have. And what we really encourage people is, if you get to a point where you notice that you're enduring, like it's really difficult and you're just kind of getting by and you're feeling overwhelmed, and you've explored in these different ways and the suggestions that we've had, if you get to that point, turn on the light. Like, it does not take away from the experience in the dark if you turn on the light for 30 seconds, for a minute. And we really encourage people to turn on the light, because what we have found over the years of witnessing people is 95% of people would rather endure in all the difficulty and the trouble and the
Yep.
pain and whatever they're doing, they would rather endure it than be a failure.
Yeah. Isn't that
And so
crazy?
most people won't turn on the light and they won't come out of the dark. And we started to see it in the early days, and it was like, whoa, like, how did that person not come out? Why did they not turn on the light? That was so, it was kind of traumatic for them. This was more
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
early days when we weren't really, it was difficult to track, because people aren't able to, most people aren't able to be totally honest with what's happening, because they're not even in contact with what's happening. So it
Right.
took a while to really read between the lines and then noticing. So now it's like we really try to strip the shame of being a failure off the front end before people go in. And like, it's actually a movement of strength to turn on that light and honor your unique system. And if you lean into a sense of nurture and safety, and then you turn on that light for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is, when you turn off that light and you go back into the dark, people find that they're more relaxed. They trust themselves and their body. They feel safer, and then they drop in deeper. But somebody who
Nice.
stays in and endures,
Yeah.
there's really not much depth, because they're so held together at the surface. And
They're
so
stuck in that fight or flight type thing. You're not letting
and
go.
that's what happens. And
Yeah.
so, that was my long kind of like, do people finish it now in the last year or so? Because it's constantly, since we're learning so much all the time, we're constantly evolving and refining how we are with people, how it's held, how we orient, that I think it's been, I don't know, over 6 months since anyone's left early. That's not to
Wow.
say that somebody maybe hasn't come out of the dark and then gone back in or turned on the light, but there hasn't been a sense of somebody is like, I'm freaking out of here, because we
Yeah.
now
Losing it.
work uniquely with each person, because everyone's unique. And like, for one person, staying in the dark and riding their edge would really be a thing that might crack them and have them open to something new. For another person, it'll just keep them in the trauma response of like going into a freeze when things are difficult, because in the past they weren't able to run, and so they've
Right.
learned to just endure and not run in difficulty. For that person, stepping out of the dark would break a cycle, and that would have them come into something new. So it's totally unique. We meet people uniquely where they're at.
That's amazing. It seems like such a powerful tool to be able to get people to be comfortable and, like you said, not go into that fight, endure.
Hmm.
Try. I think there's too much of that going on, in the world. Is people just trying to endure life instead of actually living it. And in the time they're in there, how long do they sleep for? Do people sleep all day? Do they sleep? I mean, I
Oh
know
yeah,
there's no
that's a good to talk
cures.
about that. But to the one thing that you just said was to get people to be uncomfortable, to get people to be comfortable.
Yeah, an
I mean,
uncomfortable environment.
ultimately it's somatics, but I mean semantics. With the get people to be comfortable, the thing is, it's like it's a fine line because if I'm trying to get someone to be other than they are, we're going to create a conflict in their system
Sure.
because now I'm not really giving them the space to be honest with being uncomfortable. So what would be more the like how we orient with people is supporting them in being honest with what they're really feeling in their body. So if somebody's uncomfortable, which most people are up there, my support is having them like, what if it's okay to be uncomfortable? There's more
Right.
of an indication of like allowing discomfort. And it's amazing the moment someone genuinely allows themselves to be uncomfortable, the discomfort goes from a 10 down to like a 3. And then they start to really discover that most of the discomfort is resistance
Yeah.
and fear of
Won't let
like
go.
what's going to happen if I allow this. And so it's less about making someone uncomfortable and or comfortable and more about like adding like a sense of safety, being in a sense of safety with someone so they can actually feel uncomfortable. And once somebody feels uncomfortable and they explore this sense of support and safety and being uncomfortable, there is a sense of comfort that begins to emerge, but that happens through them. It's like it's not me trying to get them to be comfortable, it's me supporting them to be honest with the fact that they're uncomfortable. So it
Right.
creates, because otherwise it creates a conflict. Like now they're like,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be comfortable. So they're doing this mechanism,
The
they're falling into
battling.
that syndrome of like the fix, change, heal. Now I'm going to ignore and numb the fact that I'm uncomfortable because I'm supposed to be comfortable. And it's just like, we're not
Right.
supposed to be doing anything. That would just be my idea of how you are, how you should be, or our culture's idea. Let's scrap all the you should be or whatever it is, and let's just, what's it like to be honest with being uncomfortable? And so,
Well,
in terms of the, yeah, so that's that kind of the comfortable, uncomfortable exploration because most people are going into the fight or flight when there's not a real need. You know, it's different when you're actually under threat, but like
right.
the coping strategies that we have, the safety mechanisms, they're happening because ultimately underneath we're feeling something that one is overwhelming and feels threatening, but also it's like for a lot of people, they don't have permission to feel that. And so if you
Right.
don't have permission to feel uncomfortable, if it's not okay to feel uncomfortable, you're not going to be able to be uncomfortable. Like the permission. And it's amazing. We see it all the time. There was somebody recently here, and the way his psyche was organized is he didn't really have permission to be sad. He had a certain kind of childhood where there was just not the space to be sad. And so because he didn't have permission to be sad, but it was clear as I was supporting him that there was sadness, but he wasn't even able to touch it. It was just like just to witness that lack of permission didn't have he wasn't even able to touch it or be honest that there was sadness, but through the support and the explorations and the questions and the added sense of safety and the like, what if it's okay to be sad? I'm not saying it's okay to be sad, but what if it was okay to be sad? All of a sudden there was a crack and there was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I can't believe how much sadness is here. And it was
Right.
just,
Yeah.
to notice how much our expectations, our beliefs of how we should be, the permission of what we have. Like for men in our culture, we do not have permission to be scared, right? Like
Right.
if you're scared as a man, you're pretty much a failure and you're gonna
Yeah.
die,
Yeah.
and
There's no
so
no life for you here.
there's no life for you here. And and then add another layer on that is like, what if you were there was this invitation to be scared, to be afraid, if that's really there, and not try to do anything to protect yourself or cover it. That's a whole nother level. Like, it's one thing as a man to feel scared, and then all of a sudden you're going to get bigger, you're going to do something about it. But like the invitation in the darkness, and actually one of the doors in the darkness to actually dropping in, is feeling your fragility,
Yeah.
is feeling a sense of fear and not covering it. It's like, as a human, there is an innate fragility. And what happens if you get in touch with your innate fragility and you don't try to be strong or cover it? There's some amazing alchemical like invitation. There's something that arises in that, in this sense of being helpless and being held at the same time. And that really has people dropping into these depths that they never even imagined.
So tell me about the process. How's it go? They show up, they
Yeah.
just blindfold, and then they go in the dark, and you guys guide them for a little bit, and then they take a nap, or is it pretty
Right.
structured throughout?
So the masks that we use, that we see on the video, those are only used when we bring people out of the dark.
Okay.
Uh, so the rooms that people go into are completely black. They're
Okay.
completely dark. They're 95% soundproof. So it's
Okay.
like there's no sound, there's no sight. And more than that, some people are like, oh, it's just like being blind. It's like, it's different than being blind. If a blind person went in there, they would also have a really profound experience, because it's more than just being blind. It's like you're not referencing or engaging actively in culture, in the
Sure.
world, in
Sure.
life. You're not achieving anything, you're not progressing in any way. It's like, it's not just not seeing, it's taking away all the things that you relate to, that you orient to for not only distracting, but also a sense of self-importance. And this is
Yeah.
where it gets a little bit, there's added difficulty for people who are into spirituality and health and wellness. It actually tends to be a little bit more difficult for those people, because when they go into the dark, it's like, it's on. I'm on retreat. I got to do the work. I'm going to meditate and do breath work and prayer and mantra and yoga. And it's
Right.
like,
Right.
it's
Right.
time to
It's
work.
intense.
And so there's this element of like, for those people, they don't get the sense being stripped away so much of the sense of progress and achievement. Like, they're achieving spirituality and healing and awakening. And that tends to be another distraction. It tends to be something that someone's doing that fills them with a sense of purpose and self-importance. And again, nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
But if we're looking to uncover what's underneath all of it, that's just another thing that we add. And the invitation here is, what if we didn't add anything? Any sense of achieving or progressing or transforming is a covering of what's already here. So there's more this invitation of this receptive, available, relaxed way of being. And so somebody arrives in the afternoon and they have the 24 hours to go for a walk on the land, step into the dark. That first night, they usually go into the dark, and they come out some point the next day and they start to get a feel for what the dark's like. They just settle into the space. And that day before they go in, they have this 2 hour session with Adrian, which deeply prepares them for the dark. She kind of distills our years of experience of being with people into these 2 hours, uniquely kind of customized to this person, how they are and how they may orient, kind of the ways that they may cope and the way that they may manage. She begins to kind of weave this
Yeah.
into the session with them. And so everyone feels way more prepared after the session. They have a map, they have a little bit more understanding of like the threat response that happens in the dark and all these different ways of orienting, using the body as an anchor. And then they go into the dark. The room's completely blacked out. It's silent. There's a little food box where like a double door. I have one on my side, they have one on theirs. That's where we pass food through. So they go into the dark, and I'm up there every morning and evening with a touch in. and they're in there for the 3 days, 4 nights. And so in the beginning, through just the brain chemistry shifts, there's a lot of melatonin that gets dumped in the very
Right.
beginning. And so people do sleep quite a bit. I mean, it's different for everyone, so there's a spectrum. Some people just have that one night's sleep, that first night's sleep when they've gone in fully, and the next day they wake up and they're just that's it. Other people spend that whole first day sleeping, napping. It's a relaxed day. And then the second day, by then the chemistry has shifted and people are really awake and in the space. And
Nice.
at a
Three
certain
days.
point, for just about everyone, some people on that first day, some people the first minute they walk in, everyone's different, but there is a moment where it kind of begins when people get hit with the reality of like, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening. Like it's
Yeah.
so different than plant medicine, which gives you a really significant experience.
Yeah.
And there is a
Yeah.
part of you, whether aware of it or not, there's a part of us that feels important because we're doing the work, we're healing, we're having an important experience. Like there's something that's engaged in, like, I'm doing the work, this is important. You don't get that in the dark because
Yeah.
nothing's happening. And we don't live in a culture that values nothing happening. You know, it's
Right.
like the
Right.
exact opposite. It's like
Yeah.
you're lazy and
Busy.
you're a
Busy.
worthless
Busy.
piece of
Busy.
shit. Yeah. And so even like the healing work, like if you're busy progressing in the world or you're busy progressing in spirituality, there's a sense of progressing and
Always
achieving.
progressing. Yeah.
You're
So
busy,
how
you're
many people?
progressing in your health,
Yeah,
anything.
of course.
But in the
It's
dark,
always
it's different. You know, you don't have that. So it's a completely new way of orienting, which it's almost impossible for anyone to really orient to unless they have it, where it's like, what is it like when I'm not orienting to a sense of gaining anything? It's really uncomfortable because you're left with your sense of lack and your
right.
sense of fragility. And
Yeah.
so that's the invitation. Like if somebody's trying to be comfortable, then like they're going to be in denial of their lack and their fragility. And so then we're really with people of like bringing it forward. Like, what if it's okay to have lack? What if it's okay to have a sense of fragility? What is that like to really begin to feel safe and settled with lack and fragility?
So how many people come back for a second go, or are they pretty much
Yeah.
good after one?
I'd say that's something that we have found has been increasing.
Really?
Like every 6 months or so, if I were to look at like a scale of like what that looks like, I'd say as we're continually evolving and refining the offering and meeting people more intimately, uniquely, there's more of a sense of nurture here and not like come do a hard thing. There's
Yeah.
more people who are like, I would do that again. And so I'd say that's like in the early days, it might have been 2 or 3%, and then like 5% and 7%. And maybe more now, it's like 10 or 15%. Like it is continually growing because I'd say one, people are having a more rounded, nurture filled experience. And also two, people are having deeper and deeper experiences as we've kind of been more deepening into the work and also deepening more into ourselves. Like I'm constantly getting to experience these profound states that people drop into that I don't, but they do. And because I'm so intimately with them, I'm getting the transmission. Like it's almost like
Yeah.
student, teacher, teacher, student.
Yeah.
I'm the
Yeah.
support. And all of a sudden, sometimes people drop into these places that like I don't go there in that unique way, but now
Right.
I get to
Right.
be in intimate contact with it and like I kind of get to learn through them what they touch. And so it's really
That's
it feels like
amazing.
a gift. Yeah.
Well, you know, to me, the whole very cool thing, I think it's amazing. I think I could see where people would get addicted to it because obviously I've spent isolation. I've gone through sabbaticals. I've done wartime stuff in the military where, you know, I mean, it's survival instinct kicks in and you do want to fight. You want to fight to live. I mean, that's our innate nature to survive. So I can see
Right.
where it would be a lot of people would be resistant to actually just feeling what it is like to just exist as opposed to
Hmm.
survive or thrive or be
Oh,
busy or
that
whatever.
that's the whole thing.
And
Right.
so
People
just
go into
exist.
survival.
Yeah, they just want to
Right.
be, I got this, you know. So I mean, I can totally understand. I can see like but the challenge to me, like, it's hard for me to get people to close their eyes in shavasana because they don't
Mhm.
trust, being around. So kudos to you for creating an environment where people are feeling so comfortable that they're willing to close their eyes and allow a really uncomfortable situation to manifest and unfold itself,
Yeah,
and trust you enough to say, "Oh, okay, yeah, this guy's got me, he's gonna make sure I'm okay." And so I think that's
totally. Yeah.
amazing, but I think, also it's teaching people that you don't need to have, um, something going on all the time in order to be
Mhm.
doing something in life. Like,
Mhm.
all of my I tell you, the reason why it was so appealing to me is I have suffered now 2 traumatic brain injuries, one a long time ago in the military, one recently due to a car accident. But the first one left me with crucial headaches that would last 3 to 5 days, and I mean, like, sound, light, everything is just it's as if somebody took the amplifier and went "Ring," and so, I mean, I am in a black room with iPads on and, eye coverings on, earplugs in, lights out, blacked out windows, dark, and I stay that way for days, but because the headaches get intensified, but more that they're stimulant, and so I've really learned a lot from myself about lying there. Obviously I'd like the pain to go away, but the simple fact of the matter is that when you can't go anywhere and you have to be in the dark and you have to be alone, man, you learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about who you really are as a human being. You're not trying to survive, or at least for me, I'm not surviving the dark, isolation. I'm surviving the pain of what I'm dealing with. So maybe that's a distraction, but it certainly has been when I saw what you're doing, I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is such a good idea. This is such a like, but I was like, man, I bet it's a hard pitch to get people to do it. You know what I mean? Like, because it's so hard to get people to close their eyes in Shavasana, let alone
Right.
go into
I
a
mean, it's not
place.
the average person. It's not the
No,
average person that
right,
comes out
right,
here. I mean, we do have it's a spectrum. It's not all like, and that's one thing I really love about it is the spectrum because we're not teaching a certain kind of meditation technique or breath work or any kind of modality. It's just kind of open to everyone. We're not and doing our best not to overlay our ideas of how you should be and how it should be done. It's more like asking questions and supporting you to touch in with your own knowing of what's
right,
right and
right.
what's good for you and your body outside of the lens of how you've taken in culture and your family's values, like what's right in your body. And so the spectrum of people we have has been huge, and yeah, definitely takes somebody who's right. I mean, if we were just pulling people off the street, it would be a whole
Yeah,
different
yeah,
thing. But
yeah.
the
Totally
people who
different.
genuinely feel like there's an impulse, they're like, I want this. And some people are like, I don't know why. It's just like there's something in it. There's a curiosity. There's like,
Yeah,
we've
can't
had
resist.
people straight off of Wall Street who have never meditated a day in their life, never did plant medicine, never did breath work, but there's something that they saw in those videos. It's like the vulnerability, like seeing humans stripped of culture, stripped of like ideals of how they should be, and actually just being raw, vulnerable, and
Yeah,
just honest, totally honest, outside of how we should be or are told to be in culture. Like there's something I think that those videos touch in people that are like, what is that? Like we just don't see that much because we're all regardless molded by culture. But when we see or kind of feel and get the transmission of somebody just being so completely unadorned and honest, it's quite amazing. And I think another thing that really touches me is how little needs to get added. Maybe nothing needs to get added.
yeah, that's a good point.
Nothing needs to be done. There's no techniques. There's no anything that's really needed for
Right.
someone to really settle into what we really are. Like the essence of what we are doesn't need a technique to have us arrive there. And
No.
so it's amazing to witness, and it happens with people while they're here that they drop into a space that they never even knew, that is a sense of being settled, complete, whole, intimate in themselves. and there was no meditation technique or breathwork style that had them get into it. It was just an honesty, a receptivity, and just a being with.
Yeah,
And
you can't really go
that
wrong.
was,
You can't
yeah,
mess it up. Like, I mean, as long as you show up, you're really in it. Because it's not like meditation or breath work where if you don't do it right, you don't get the same effects. You know, darkness is darkness. So depending on if you can let go, I guess, and not fight everything, probably an
sure. And
amazing.
easier said than done. Like you
Right.
said, we're creatures of survival. So like
That
there is
instinct kicks
this
in. Yeah.
it deep in us to just survive. So the letting
Well, and we have a
go is
circadian clock, which also wants to turn on and off, which is our whole
is that
cycle of
right?
sleep. And so, yeah, I mean, we could definitely we're going to have to do a follow up podcast. We're already at almost an hour. And so
Yep.
we'll have to
Yeah.
do like a couple of these because there's so much we could talk about on it. But please
Yeah.
tell people what you'd love them to know, like how they can reach you, how they can find out more information, how they can get
Yeah.
involved
Cool.
in trying this. And we're going to do a part two because I've got a lot of questions, but
Cool.
I don't want to
Awesome,
dominate
Chris.
it all.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn today. So, but yeah, we'll
Yeah.
definitely do a part two, but tell people how they can connect with you.
Cool. Yep. So skycaveretreats.com or on Instagram, YouTube, like to watch some of the videos. On Instagram and YouTube, there's YouTube Shorts. There's the like shorter videos of, 40, 50 second, kind of like a highlight reel of people coming out. But also on YouTube and our website, there's longer form of
Oh,
like
wow.
3, 4, 10-minute videos of people
Okay.
really sharing the scope of their experience. And I think like kind of a disclaimer I would say is when we see those videos, it's a highlight reel. That's not what the person was in, the
Right.
totality of their dark
Yeah.
retreat.
Yeah.
Like when you
Yeah.
come out of the dark, there's so much dopamine, there's a lot. So not to take it like that was their experience.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
definitely
That's
insights were alive and they touched those spaces while they were in the dark, but it's not a peak experience being in the dark. But those videos do kind of give a window into what people do touch. And
yeah.
so our website, good way to reach out to us is through our website. And yeah, following along on Instagram or YouTube as we kind of share more and more people's reflections and experiences as they emerge.
Well, I'm certainly going to put links everywhere to promote because I think it's a great idea. I think it'll bring people back to themselves, which is what we need to do. I teach people that when you meditate, you take yourself on a date. And if you
Mm,
really like who you are, then you go on a second date and a third date and a fourth date, and the dates start to last longer. And so, if you don't like who you are, then you won't meditate again. You won't take yourself back on a second date. And really puts it into perspective for people because they think about it and go, I don't think I would ask myself back out, So it's like but yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do it again because I think this is amazing, and I'm gonna do some research, watch some of the YouTube stuff because I've seen the short clips, but I've not seen any of the longer time
yeah.
stuff. And
Oh,
Scott, I appreciate you taking time out, man. I know you got a lot going
yeah.
on, and getting on your schedule was challenging, but thank you. And let's do it again soon. Yeah,
Awesome, Chris. Yeah, let's do it again.
I hope
Thanks.
to get out to the West Coast and give it a go too.
Yeah, I would love to have you out
All
here.
right, brother. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you again, and we will talk soon.
Cool. Take care,
Take
Chris.
care, brother.
Bye.
See ya.